Hello and welcome to
Hello,
the
everyone.
Pleb
So, welcome back to Pleb Philosophers.
Interrupted my ass. Yeah, welcome to Pleb Philosophers, and this time we're showing our faces. And I'm the real pleb. I got a damn tunic on. I got the full tunic on, baby.
Pretty high quality for a simple pleb,
Yeah, it's
but
pretty high
it's,
quality. You had to
yeah,
participate in many
modern
gangs.
technology.
Had to participate in many gangs to get this. Had to crack some skulls.
Right. Just to clarify again, I'm Paul,
And
and the other
Matthew.
person is Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the one with the real bushy ass beard. It's like, yeah, I'm the real philosopher, mate.
Alright.
So, what are we talking about today, Paul?
Yeah, so today's subject is going to be history. Now, that's just history in general. We can talk about different eras in history, specifics, and also keep it broad as well as what history is all about.
Mm.
Um, so, leading into history, what I will do is I'll quickly get a definition online on what history is, just so we're all on the same page.
Mm.
Now, was there anything else you wanted to mention, Matthew, before we start getting into history?
Well, I know that you and I absolutely fucking love our history. We love that stuff. I've loved history ever since I was a wee little boy, studying ancient Egypt, Aztec, China, bit of Rome. But then I discovered Rome till like my later teenage years, and oh boy, Rome are fucking invicta, mate.
So, is well, we could talk about Rome later, actually, once we get started then, considering that's a part of history.
Yeah.
So, the online definition of history is the study of past events, particularly in human affairs. So, that's definition number one. Number two is the whole series of past events connected with a particular person or thing.
Mm.
So, the there are two different types of definitions, but to really summarize, it's about past events or the study of past events. It's not necessarily actually just the past events themselves.
Yeah.
It can also be how you perceive past events because, yeah, like
Yeah.
everything, we don't always have all the information.
Mm.
And a lot of the times, for example, with Rome, a lot what we know about Rome is thanks to archaeology, some old documents which were made back in Roman times and people writing and talking about the Romans. We don't exactly have any, Romans currently, which we can ask questions about, like, hey,
Mm.
what was Julius Caesar like?
Mm.
We can't have those live witnesses because they're all dead. So, yeah,
I mean,
that's history.
I even go as far as history is our identity as the human race. Who are we without our history?
Well, so here's a question, Matthew. How important is history?
Extremely.
Like, what, in your opinion?
Well, my opinion's gonna be biased, but to me, history is important. It's our identity. If we don't know history of our ancestors or the events that happened before, then who are we? Or more so, gotta make sure we don't repeat the past. Don't want any more Hitlers running around or Stalins or anything like that.
Ideally, no overzealous, tyrannical tyrants. Yeah.
Because if we know the horrors of history, we're definitely not gonna. Well, hopefully, we're not gonna repeat them. Hopefully, maybe.
Well, I say there's also knowing history, right? And then
Mm.
there's actually
Living it.
having the wisdom to learn from it too.
Mm. And it's
It's like,
also
oh, yeah,
living in history too. It's like with COVID. We've lived throughout COVID, pandemic. That was history.
I
Uh,
mean, like arguably everything that has happened, is history.
yeah.
But it really comes down to if it's been recorded
Oh, I could say that
in
COVID's
history.
definitely been recorded, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's it, because it's a big event. We all
Mm,
know about it. Same thing with World War Two. Lots
yeah,
of documentation.
yeah. And it even goes far back as ancient, even, um, what's that word? What's that word for cavemen? I'm not gonna say prehistoric. Prehistoric? No, not prehistoric. Prehistoric? No.
Say
Yes.
Bronze Age, Stone
Stone
Age,
Age. 'Cause, yeah, even they have recorded documents in their cave paintings.
cave
Yeah,
paintings. Yeah.
and all the tools we'd find. You know,
Well, that's it.
that's really
But
fucking cool.
I say it also means though we're somewhat limited in what we know of what happened back then,
Mm,
because the only things people were using to record information were cave painting drawings or some random tools that are a few thousand years old.
mm,
There's no, detailed recordings like we would have now today of COVID.
mm,
We have footage of that. We have documentation. Hell, even World War Two, we have footage, live action footage.
mm.
So we can see and learn a lot more because of that information. Now, um, history, focusing on history
History,
in,
yeah,
in general, before we specialize too much,
yeah.
um, what do you think is important about history if you're getting into history?
If you yourself are like a scholar getting into history, I guess,
Yeah, or if you're
like
just
just
interested
yeah, just
in
pick the
learning
stuff you're
history.
interested in. I mean, what's the point in learning something if you're not going to be interested in? It's kind of like me with Rome. Roman ancestors. That's what makes it so fun. Yeah, you just can't learn something that you're not interested in, because you're just gonna forget it. No point, right?
Or at least it's difficult to remember or learn.
And you're just gonna get bored out of your ass. So that's
Mm.
just a waste of time. Bloody flap. Cheap tunics, fellas, getting.
um, so moving on, I would say one other important point about history is is understanding the bias of history.
Yeah, understand the bias. There we go.
Yeah, I had to think about
I
that.
mean, what's the saying? Let the winners write the history. Isn't that the saying? The
Yeah, yeah,
winners.
the victors uh, riot history. There's a saying. Um, but what it means in practice is that the person who's actually recording what has happened is the one that is, writing history, writing the truth,
Mm,
or the truth that people will understand in the future.
mm,
For example, if, you know, if, what would be good? If I found some endangered species, right, in Australia,
mm,
and, I recorded all that information. I was the first one to discover it. I make these documents about what a species does and all of this, right? And then I go to present that information, but I end up, dying prematurely
mm.
for whatever reason, and someone else finds my research and, oh, well, I might as well use it and takes credit for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like, in reality, I've actually been the one that has discovered it, right?
Mm,
And made all the documents about it. But in practice, like for the rest of the world, the person who's presented that information is going to be the one recorded in history as discovering that
mm.
endangered species or unknown species. So, history in that sense is just whoever actually, you know, who we believe to have done whatever it was. Whereas in reality, it could have been me, but history will know Joe Blow as the one who discovered the,
Yeah.
you know, Velociraptor in modern times.
I mean, that
Could
could
be
always
anything.
be really scary, knowing that the history that we've learned and taken for granted could be all incorrect, or
Yeah.
by someone else can like, whoop whoop, you know. That's always the scariest bit. So what are some of your favorite
So
historical
the actual
moments?
saying is history is written by victors.
There we go. Written by victors.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
And thanks to Winston Churchill.
yeah, he was a victor.
What were you saying, Matthew?
So tell me some of your favorite historical moments.
Favorite. That's
Mm. Yeah, give me some of your favorites.
So, well, not necessarily my most favorite, but it's definitely up there. Would be starting off earlier, Yuri Gagarin going into space. So,
Alright.
first humans in space, that's a big thing, and then of course the moon.
Mm.
Um, Gunpowder, I think it was very important.
Gunpowder. Bloody hell.
Yeah, or at least once the Europeans got their hands on it, I should say, because uh, that changed a lot moving forwards. There's a lot of different things. I'd also say penicillin would
Penicillin.
probably be a huge game changer.
Hmm.
Those are just, inventions, those types of things. If there's something I really like about history, it's learning about ancient civilizations and,
Mm.
previous empires like Rome, like the Mongolian Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. It's always interesting to learn about those different types of
Yeah,
organizations and countries that have
yeah.
existed.
The Holy Roman Empire ain't holy, ain't Roman. So sure as shit ain't an empire. Tell you that
Well,
much.
and this is the beauty of, you know, what historians is that you can make your own judgment and opinion on the information that
Mm.
you are provided. And if you're saying it's absolutely crap, that's your opinion, you know? So, although I agree with you, it
A
definitely
lot of
wasn't the
people
Roman
agree
Empire.
with that said opinion.
I think the memes are kind of fanning the hate there, just
Oh,
pointing that out.
yeah, they were ahead even before memes, right?
Well, I
But
think it's interesting how there were essentially so many tiny states and countries and city states that existed. Because if you look at back then, during that time period, countries were a lot bigger.
mm,
And a lot of those smaller city states and princes wouldn't have been able to survive if it wasn't for that larger organization, the
mm,
HRE.
mm.
So I just think it's an interesting concept to have so many tiny states under one umbrella. A
Yeah,
lot
but
of
they,
infighting.
lot of infighting, and then they had all the free cities. They had the
Hey,
principalities.
I
They
never said
had,
it was a good thing.
then,
I just said it's interesting.
and then you have all the Habsburg. And that's like the Habsburgs. I love the Habsburgs. You know,
Matthew, I don't think the incest was that bad.
well, this is
Oh,
what that
well,
bad. It says it on the
depends
first
on what
place.
time period.
The Habsburgs sick. But it's true, the Habsburgs had like massive tongues, like barely speaks. The incest was that bad. But purity of the bloodline, go get the bloodline pure. At the cost
Uh,
of being mocked on centuries later. Oh shit. But my favorite moments in history. Ooh, I'll probably go with the Roman one, the Battle of Alesia. That was interesting how Julius Caesar made two walls and then
double
starved
walls.
the enemy off. But that's another thing, right? About historical bias. So
Mm,
I learned about that through the Gaelic Wars. And of course, that was written by the man himself, Julius Caesar. And how I mentioned how, he made the Romans more heroic, more, what they were doing was good. But in reality, he was crucifying people left and right, killing kids, killing all the elderly and all that shit. And even, correct me if I'm wrong, but he also severed hands of all the males all the Gaelic males, so they couldn't fight back. I do remember him doing something along those lines, or just cutting off people's hands. Now that wasn't mentioned in the book. We had to find out through archaeological discovery. Funny enough. So, again, historical bias. Sometimes you have to look beyond the book, or beyond what the actual source says.
And that's where multiple sources from different, especially in wars, from different sides, different point of views,
Mm.
help paint the overall picture. Because even if someone's being, objective, as objective humans could be, they might not know certain information. For
Yeah.
example, like the numbers of the armies. Maybe Caesar was only up against,
Like,
size equal to his own army, or
mm.
maybe it was 100 to 1.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information which just is more trustworthy if you have multiple sources,
Yeah.
collaborating on that.
Yeah. Let's see another historical moment. Oh, there's
So
so
I
many.
know the Battle of
Oh, oh,
Battle at
oh!
Agincourt is a
Damn it!
good
I was gonna
one.
say it with the fist. You bastard! I was gonna say when he screwed over the French. I love that. That the French were so pricks. Like ha ha ha. We have so many armored cavalry. What the fuck are you gonna do? And the English go, hello.
Longbows.
Longbows. Power of the English longbow. Fuck them over. And the mud, the terrain, all that. Fuck the French over, English ruled the French
Mm.
for a while.
And to say, the movie The King, I think,
Mm.
does the
That's a good one.
battle well. It
Yeah.
does a good depiction of the battle, but everything leading up to it as well.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that was an
and it
excellent
just,
movie.
yeah, and it just shows you the importance of, people recording that information.
Mm.
Because if it wasn't recorded, we'd never know that that happened.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
was a big turning point for the English as well.
Mm. And shit for the French, but the French.
Uh, So here's something which I want to ask you, Matthew.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the longbow? Because
Again,
really, it's only the
bias.
British.
I see. I have a lot of British ancestry, so I am incredibly biased. Look, it worked. It worked against heavy mounted cavalry. It works because the rule was, I think I remember this, a child of the age of 9 or 10 has to train for 3 to 4 hours after church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And then just
Well, like
constantly,
once a week or something.
just once a week, just constantly. Because each bow, 'cause a bow isn't easy to make back then. Because they're massive. You gotta make the arrows. You gotta
Yeah,
get every. You got
especially the
everything.
longbow.
Everything needs to be in perfect synchronization for it to work. And a bow's an investment. So the army gives you bows. Like, here you go, bow, train. So they're trained. Of course, England has a huge population. So you get a whole heap of archers that can deliver. Because when you have so many, you don't really need to be accurate. Just fire. You're gonna hit
Well,
something, right?
and even then, using that overall strategy, they'll always have that manpower of trained archers.
Mm.
Because the biggest thing with a longbow is you can't just, oh,
Yeah.
I'll grab this bow and shoot it. It's
Yeah.
very hard to pull on.
It's
So,
incredibly things that you're not meant to
mm,
draw it fully back because I'm pretty sure longbow is 120 pounds.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's high.
and they're nasty. Arrow
Yeah.
tips are nasty. The whole barbed things meant to dig
Well,
into your flesh, and then as soon as you tear it
mm,
out, tear out even more chunks out of you.
and with that high force, that's where it would be really useful against armor
Mm. But then
and just dealing
another
damage.
point in history which I really love is the invention of the crossbow. Right,
Mm,
the French crossbow. So when France had to deal with a lot of enemies, Like, I just feel so sorry for the knights. You train all your life, you, you get best investment your family can offer, you're fully decked out, ready to go. You've decked out your body, ready to go from,
With your
like,
warhorse.
yeah, with your warhorse, and then just a little peasant dead. Like, fucking hell. And there was a lot of, it didn't take much effort. A peasant can just, that's it. Just a simple squeeze of the trigger. And that's it. End of a night. And that's why knights died out, pretty much, after
Well,
the crossbow.
well, no. Say knights died out after firearms,
Firearms, but like they were
but the
significantly
crossbow,
reduced.
yeah, crossbow definitely changed the way knights would have fought. But like cavalry was still around until World War One,
Yeah, but there was
and
more
by
so
then they had
closing
artillery.
gaps. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. And more so closing gaps instead of like front line. The death of frontline cavalry, pretty much.
Uh, nah, definitely until World War One.
Yeah, but usually, you know,
I
just
say for
plug in the
European. Okay,
holes.
let's put it this way: for European tactics, cavalry frontline charges was still a thing, even if you had crossbows. Because the big thing about crossbows as well is the reload time.
Yeah, that's why you have another
Um,
guy standing back. It's like
yeah,
how with muskets work, the volley fire. They have
but
frontline then.
even then, stopping a cavalry charge with just crossbows alone would still be very difficult. Um,
Depends on how much peasants you got.
yeah. Well, yeah, okay. Using that logic, yes, quantity is a quality of
Yeah,
its own.
yeah.
Um,
Oh shit. But
and
yeah.
and yeah, so moving on from weapon production. Let's change a bit. We've focused a lot on the military side of history.
mm.
Let's sort of branch out for a while. Um,
I really liked the Venetians and how they reinvented not currency, like accounting.
mhm.
They did a certain technique, a mathematical technique, which we still use today. Oh my god.
uh,
It's like on the edge of my brain. They invented something unique for accounting to stop corruption, to stop people just taking a lot of things out.
you don't mean just like making their own currency.
No, it's a certain mathematical technique which accountants use to say, hey, you took that amount. Hold the fuck up. What are you doing?
Okay, so
It was
just
something.
essentially some really well bookkeeping format to
Yeah,
stop people from keeping
something along those
money in the
lines.
pocket.
Yeah,
Okay, sounds like accounting to me, but
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Phoenicians were excellent accountants. They were incredibly rich back then. Definitely not now,
so that going back to city states, I think a lot of city states could be very specialized.
though.
They were very mercantile, so
But I imagine history is also just as important in terms of politics to see how things were in different political ideologies. I could take England, for example, the Parliamentarian War. So, royalists versus parliamentarians. So, basically, parliamentarians wanted, well, they want a parliament. Royalists, as they know, monarchy controls everything. And just having the House of Commons. No, not House of Commons. Like just royalty and Parliament,
absolute power in the royal.
parliamentarians won and kind of broke a lot of the monarchy's power and more distributed. And something like that could happen today with, say, democracy. Something could easily happen just like that. And that's the importance of history. And same thing with communism, fascism, or the feudalism. I don't think any of us want feudalism again.
We've
That
been
would be
done that for a long time in Europe.
Yeah,
Happy to let it go.
I don't think I want to live in a feudalist system. But it can show us history can show us the horrors of things that have happened that could happen again if we let it. And then that's a huge huge thing about history that we gotta know.
On the topic of horrors, how much of it though is actually true? Question.
Yeah.
Because, like we said before, everything is written by the victors.
Mm,
Whoever's actually recording the information is saying this happened, and we're taking their word for it.
yeah.
You know,
Well, that's the benefit of
so
archaeology. So they could study the areas, the bones, the writings of the victims. They can get the proper truth, and then rewrite it. Say, hey, hold on, you guys didn't win. You guys actually lost. You know, or like you didn't get that much victory.
yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe there was no actual battle there in the first place,
Yeah,
and it was
exactly.
200 kilometers eastwards.
Mm. So that's the
So,
importance of archaeology. Actually just be in there, find the actual
mm.
truth.
Well, I'd say it's a little bit harder for like smaller events which didn't leave, physical evidence behind.
Mm.
Like, for example, the Night of the Long Knives, World War Two or pre-World War Two. The Nazis doing a bit of a cleaning or purging amongst their own ranks.
Mm.
If you don't find the bodies, or the equipment used, and you may not even be able to prove that it was from that event,
Mm.
you're taking a lot more uh, word, a lot more truth from what people are saying that
Mm.
happened, rather than physical evidence.
Yeah. So we've discussed the bias of history. We talk about some of our favorite events of history. So let's talk about how can we get someone who's never really done history before into loving history? How can we turn history more relevant today? Because let's face it, most history classes, people are just like, you know, they sleep through it. But it's such an important topic, you know, but
So
it's viewed as incredibly boring. So how can we make it not boring?
I think love is a strong word in that scenario. Just putting it out there. More interested in history might be a little bit easier, but it's like you said before, Matthew. If no one's interested in something, it's harder to
Yeah,
learn about it and force it down people's throats too. So, in regards to history, you got to just give people something they're interested in.
I
Like
got a
we're
solution.
interested in military stuff, for
Yeah,
example. Doesn't mean everyone is. Maybe they're interested in animals
yeah.
or herbs. So you just got to give them something interesting.
See,
You said you had an idea?
oh yeah, I got a good idea. Reliving it. So let's say we had a high
Yeah, yeah.
school, and like if we say, okay, fellas, we're going to write a report on this. You'd be bored as shit. But it's like, no. Everyone section in groups. We get foam swords and shields. Go to the oval and actually recreate the battle. How cool would that? They're making it because history. It looks alright on books, but it's so much cooler if you actually get to actually participate and live it. That's why we love, like, people flock in the thousands to watch reenactments. There's a reason for that. We love to actually see it, to be in it, not just read it. And I think that will win the hearts of many people if like actually just go in.
And so the good news is you wouldn't have to just keep that to reenactments of military events.
Mm,
You could also reenact rowing a really old boat.
yeah,
Extreme example, but
yeah,
you could apply that to more interesting things.
yeah.
But you see, that reminds me of a specific event that happened. I think it was in America, where a school was trying to educate the kids on what it meant to be a slave, a
Mm,
black slave specifically, on cotton fields. And what they did was they got the students just for a day to work the cotton fields like they used to back in the day.
yeah.
Um, I know afterwards, I'm pretty sure like they got hounded by many
You know they
people
did.
saying, "Oh, they're treating the kids, the black kids, like slaves, and they're mistreating them, and blah blah blah." Even though what they were actually showing the kids was, a perspective of what it meant to be like
Yeah,
back then as a slave, which is very educational.
it is.
But people, just reacted negatively in the sense that, oh, we can't, show the kids the fact that slavery is bad.
Yeah, that's the whole
So
politically correct thing because I view it in a non-biased way. I think that's an excellent way of teaching history, the horrors of history, to not repeat it, to not have slavery. To show the kids that, this is what happened, right? This is shit.
well, I mean, look, I suppose there's like three ways you can, teach in that sense of like that type of historical event. One is you can get the students to relive it the way it was,
Mm,
close to it, work in the cotton fields,
mm,
see how hard it is, how crap it is. You don't get water when you want water, that type of thing. And you don't do that in an extreme, dangerous way. You're not
yeah,
actually
yeah,
enslaving them or
no,
anything.
no.
Two, you keep it theoretical. You just tell them it's crap. Being a slave is terrible.
Mm,
That's why we don't do it. Or three, you don't tell them at all.
yeah,
And I have a feeling that this political correctness is taking us to the point where we're going to number three, where we stop talking about these things that have happened
mm,
because they're so sensitive and we could offend people if we talk about it. Like, for
yeah,
example, the Jews that were gassed.
mm,
And another thing is a lot of the other people that were gassed, which weren't Jews,
mm,
prisoners of war, the crippled, mentally disabled, all these different minority groups as well.
mm,
That were all gassed as well, but
mm,
nobody talks about them as much.
no,
We're sort of becoming insensitive to what has happened in the past, and like you said, we might be destined to repeat it if we keep ignoring it.
mm.
So
So, I mean, you
that
can't just
that's my take
ignore
on it.
and be offended of these things. I mean, yes, they're absolutely horrible,
But
but
you can. That's the thing,
yeah, I know,
Matthew.
but it's just
People
like
are doing it.
it's
Well,
really shit because it's just ignoring history has so many dangers.
especially in the sense that people are being ignorant about it.
Mm,
Like ignoring and being ignorant, I still think are different in the sense that ignoring, you might still know about it, and you just don't want to talk about it.
mm,
Being ignorant about it is just, you may not even know about it at all,
exactly.
and you don't want to know about it.
Mm.
So it is a bit more dangerous, in my opinion.
And it is dangerous. Just not knowing things is dangerous. It allows people to
No.
shift history to make people hate people even more or ignore the crimes of the past.
Yeah,
That's like,
the saying of what you don't know doesn't hurt you does not apply to everything,
yeah,
or a great many things, I should say.
yeah,
If I don't know there's a sniper behind me 100 meters away trying to kill me, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be killed or hurt.
mm,
Same thing if people didn't know about, diseases and bacteria and how they worked.
yeah,
Doesn't mean you're still not going to get the Black Plague and die.
mm,
And it's the same thing with history. Just because you didn't, know about what Hitler did, taking over a country and gassing a bunch of people, doesn't mean, it's not going to happen again right now.
mm,
Could be happening right now and we don't even know it.
mm. No, exactly. Like, whoa.
So,
My God. But yeah, no, if I was a history teacher, I'd definitely take my students out and actually fight each other. Our gallery is so cool.
Maddie,
Just
I think you're just a bit warlike. That I think that's all
why?
it
I
is.
am not
You have a
bloodthirsty.
certain desire
I am
to
not
do
bloodthirsty.
reenactments.
But I mean, like, if it's so cool, it's like, get a foam sword. whack the
Start
enemy.
whacking
You
people.
know, how cool would that be? Get all the stress out, all the English relief. You know,
That
just
would require you to be bloodthirsty to begin with, to use it as stress relief.
no.
Some people I don't think could relieve their stress that way. Mind you, a great many people could,
Oh well, if you
definitely.
push them far enough, you know. My God, I've constantly been doing this throughout the video, just getting the flap to annoy me because whenever I see it, boop. I
Maybe you
don't want
should
you. I
just
don't want
ignore it.
YouTube to put in like a, you gotta sign in to watch 'cause nudity.
Speaking of that, it's ridiculous how things have turned out nowadays.
mm,
Like history can tell us what has been in the past and what is currently happening, and it can show us the differences. For
mm,
example, YouTube ads. So I remember back in my day when I was younger, YouTube ads. What were those? Okay, they
barely.
go on for
Like,
5 seconds. Now we have double YouTube ads that just pop up, and you can't skip.
mm, unless you have
I
YouTube
mean,
Premium.
unless you have YouTube Premium. That was never a thing
You
back
know,
when
like
we were younger.
back,
Like,
yeah, I can remember. Like, you might get a YouTube ad like every like 6 videos you watch, or
yeah,
like every
it was
10.
rare.
It was rare. Not like having video after video after video,
So
ad after
it's
ad after ad
becoming
after ad. It's like,
it's funny because it's actually turning into what television um
mm,
is or was like, where you'd have your ads just spread throughout the day
mm,
whenever you're watching television. YouTube's doing the same thing, and as well as other online services, just ads flowing throughout your online usage.
mm.
So
True that. So basically, what I'm just trying to get for the viewers is like this is just a broad. We're just talking about a huge, broad bubble of history. Eventually, we'll be covering specific things in the future. But for now, we're
yeah,
just like just give me our like perspective on everything in
yeah,
our big bubble.
big umbrella of
Big
what
big
history covers.
yeah.
So big.
Oh god, yeah, it's big.
Um, one other thing about history, uh, which many people say, is using history we can predict the future.
Mm,
Looking at the past, we can see what's going to happen in the future. Um, I think that's an interesting way of looking at history, in the sense that you can use information, past history,
mm,
to sort of guess what the future's going to be.
mm,
Now, that definitely works, in like models when you're predicting, who knows, like the economy, oh, our GDP percentage is going to rise by 2% next
mm.
year. That type of modeling, you can use history to predict the future.
Yeah.
And to a large degree, it's fairly accurate. But when it comes to things like, wars, battles, inventions, technology, I think it's a little bit more complex than just saying, using the past to predict the future,
Yeah.
because there's so many different factors.
Mm. Yeah,
And
that's
even if
true.
you consider all these factors, a lot of stuff happens by chance.
Yeah.
So I don't think that saying holds true. I just wanted to talk about that saying because I've heard it used a lot.
Yeah. But history can be also very important for like marketing, politics. It can be useful for just about anything. Agriculture,
Hmm.
all sorts.
Well,
Like you can use it.
after all, history, yeah, is just the study of the past.
Mm.
If we didn't do that to begin with, we'd not be using books. We wouldn't be using previous information to develop new things,
Mm.
technology, or find out and discover new things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very important aspect. And I'm glad we have the technology now to record a lot of history. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
because, now we got phones, baby.
Yeah,
It's like with the Ukrainian war, right?
Mm.
If we had old-fashioned way of history
Recording the
and
information.
recording the information,
Yeah.
it would just be honestly
Broad
Ukraine
stuff.
probably it'd just be really broad stuff. It'd just be like depending on what poster is available.
Mm.
Now, yeah,
Yeah.
Russians, you can't do much secretive shit now. All of us got
Oh,
phones,
I
you
say, but
know.
more so, even if they do secretive things, we can see so much more. There's so much more data or data, depending on how you like to pronounce it, to just absorb
Mm,
and examine. And in a few years' time, looking back at it all, the historians they're going to have a field day just because there's so much more available
mm,
compared to in the past, where the only thing you have from Caesar's double walls is his recordings and all the dead bodies left around.
yeah,
Now we have live footage of
yeah.
the actual battles, as well as testimonies and everything else.
Mm.
So it's beautiful. Well, in the sense that we can just record a lot more.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot more availability of history because
Mm.
anyone could be a historian now. Just boop, watch.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
learn
and
about the
record.
past.
Yeah, and like if they're living in history, they can just record it, and it can be from multiple
Mm.
perspectives. And that's good because it makes things more genuine instead of just having the one
Mm.
perspective. You have multiple, and it's like, whoa,
Well,
that's so cool.
especially with videos,
Mm,
because it's a lot easier to just use a video
mm,
and people can see it themselves. Like,
yeah,
a video is probably one of the most unbiased things you can use. For example, you take a picture or a video of something like a tank, right?
mm,
You can see it. Whereas if you're actually writing it down and recording that, there's a lot more bias
yeah,
because, okay, you're saying it's green, it's like this, it's two
mm,
meters long. If you just take a picture or a recording, you've got all of that information right there.
yeah,
And you don't have to process it and, try to explain it in your own words.
mm,
So I think thanks to technology, there's a lot more capability for objectivity.
yeah, yeah. That's completely true. All right. So, any closing statements before we head off in today's episode?
So I'll just quickly say history is very broad. Um, if I had to say something else, it's also very biased.
Mm,
History is probably because it's all about the recording of information for future generations as well. It's very important, but heavily biased. So
mm,
it's going to be the most subjective, untruthful, shrouded in mystery thing apart from politics.
mm,
So just whenever you have a certain piece of information, of some historical event or invention, take it with a grain of salt.
mm,
If someone said, you know, Jesus walked on water, you know, take it with a grain of salt.
yeah,
If there's a video of Jesus walking on water, still take it with a grain of salt because
yeah.
CGI and everything.
So, in other
But
words, be
that's the
skeptical.
principle. Be
Yeah.
skeptical, yeah, because it's the truth is different from a fact,
Mm.
and I'll leave it at that.
I would say history is a tool, just like philosophy. We need to use it to reference in the past to make sure we do not repeat it again. We do not want feudalism. We do not want another world war, right? So don't repeat it. Learn history. That's what you need, right?
Uh,
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you have a good one. And this is Matthew signing off.
and Paul signing off as well.